I want to spend just 2 seconds and give people a little bit of background on the role that I have at Gartner and why I look at and talk about these things and what gives me the license to do this. So very quickly, I work in a part of Gartner that many of you may not be that familiar with. So everybody knows Gartner for the Magic Quadrants and helping CIOs and end user IT and so on and so forth. I work in a part of Gartner whose clients are all technology companies of every form, shape, size, maturity level, from 0 to tens of billions. And my purview is, broadly speaking, go to market, but I spend inordinate amounts of time on areas like product-led growth and product marketing, and subsequently in a couple of technologies, one of which is interactive demo tech, which you may also know as demo automation. I'll say the phrase product experience, but however we call it, interactive demo tech is what we're here to talk about, and it's an area of tech that I focus on from the perspective of how does it help go to market, and then obviously trying to understand which products fit which use cases and which needs and solve which pain points, so that you all can actually show the value of what you offer to your prospects. So that's the quick intro. Now, it's a lot of pressure for technology to change your life, or a presentation about a technology to talk about being life-changing. But let's get into it. And rather than jumping right into the demo-ness of it, if you will, I want to talk about it from a go-to-market perspective. And the reason I want to do that is many of the conversations that I have with my clients, and generally speaking, chats on LinkedIn and so on, starts from the perspective of we need to do better at various aspects of go-to-market. It might be that sales cycles are too long. It might be that we don't have efficiency in pipeline. It might be that we don't have enough resources to address the volume of prospects, and all of them want to see demos, so on and so forth. But regardless of the go-to-market approach that your organization has, so whether you're a traditional sales-led, top-down business outcome based sort of go-to-market, there are challenges in that. And I think we all know them, and I won't go through each one, but probably the major challenge, a major challenge, is that sales cycles are continually egregiously long. We find that they're about 10 months on average, and of course it's going to vary depending upon deal size and other factors, but they're long. It could be longer. That could be a year. It could be more than a year. So when you have a product that you're trying to show and get across the value of to your prospects, getting that done can be a hard thing, and it's one step along a longer path. So sales-led has challenges, and over the last, let's say, 4 years, product-led has become a big thing in B2B tech. It was a bigger thing on the B2C side since maybe 2014. But with the advent of product-led, the feeling was, wow, everything's going to be so much easier and the product's going to sell itself and all of that. And of course, we know that it doesn't work that way. But it can certainly be helpful in giving somebody an opportunity to get a real product experience without having to talk to salespeople, which they don't want to do. But it has its challenges as well, and you can see the litany of them here. And one of the biggest ones is that not every product lends itself to a self-service product experience. In other words, I can't put every product into a free trial for a variety of different reasons, or make it freemium or so on. So bottom line here is that both approaches have their challenges, and to be successful in either one, ultimately we need to be able to talk about the value of what we do, but we need to show the value of our products to our prospects. They want to see it. They want to make sure that it does what they need it to do, solves their pain points, all of that. So with that, I'm going to give a quick go-to-market quiz here. No need to respond. I'm going to answer all the questions myself. But in your organization, what do you think is the best performing call to action, or CTI, on your website? Now, it may not be the best performing, but I guarantee this is one of the top few, and our data tells us the same thing. It's the get a demo button, and everyone has one of these on their website, maybe more than one of these. Now, second question is, what's the most frustrating call to action for your prospects on your website? Guess which one it is? It's the request a demo button. Now, and by the way, I just thought I'd add this one in for fun. By the way, these are real pictures of real buttons. The names have been changed to protect the innocent, but this is one I've encountered that I have to laugh at. Request your free demo. Well, they're all free, but okay. This is frustrating to buyers. Why is it frustrating to buyers and prospects? Because in order to get that demo, if we actually want to show them what we do and how the product works and how it's going to solve all of their problems, they have to either metaphorically pull a lot of rocks up a hill or jump through a lot of hoops to for the honor of seeing and understanding the value of what we do. And you can see all the different things that have to happen. So, we kind of make it and traditionally have made it hard on our prospects for them to see what we do and understand, yeah, this is the product I want. This is the vendor that I want to work with. Now, let's say that they get through all of those hoops and you're actually able to give them a demo and grant them, that honor. Traditionally, up until very recently, what's required to give a successful demo? Someone and technology. If you want to give a demo to someone, you had to actually have a person, sales engineer, pre-sales person, SDR, AE, whoever it is, former product marketer like myself, but somebody had to give a demo and somebody had to spin up an application in order to do that. So the thing had to work, person had to be there, and that's partly why sales cycles are as long as they are, because it takes a lot of tries and calendaring, scheduling, and more than one people want to see it and all of that. And how many demos would you like to be able to do at one time? Given that last example on that model, you kind of can only do one at a time. Now, you can have an infinite number of sales engineers or SEs or pre-sales people, but nobody does. But ideally, you don't want the number of people or the number of resources or the availability of the product to be a gating factor. What you'd like to be able to do is provide an infinite number of demonstrations, of course, to those prospects that fit your IC, your ideal customer profile or ICP, but you don't want to be limited by people or tech. So pardon the bit of an intro, but it sort of sets the stage for, if you, to create a pun here, if you reimagine regular, normal, traditional demos as interactive demos, then everything changes. Why does everything change? For a variety of reasons. One is that demos now can become content. A demo can become a piece of content that I put on my website or send out as part of a campaign that my demand gen people grab a hold of and send around to our prospects. And it's just that easy. I now have a piece of content that I can make available to an infinite number of people if I want to, or have them self-serve and look at it. And at the same time, those demos become intent data sources. You may all now be familiar with the notion of signal-based marketing and sales, or the ability to understand purchase intent based on the signals that individuals and individuals within accounts throw off as they visit your website and post things on social and change their jobs and all sorts of that. But demos collect data. When you have it on your website, when you send it out, it collects data, and that gives you data to have much warmer, qualified conversations with your prospects. And then the last major point, and this is more for the pre-sales and SE folk in the crowd here, is that demos become, and this, by the way, we are approaching Halloween, so demos become easier and much less scary. The burden of spinning up a live application or spinning up and making available a demonstration of a product that requires two applications to work, or has API calls, or has real data in it, takes a lot of work. And if you have to do that repeatedly, obviously that's really hard. But this technology makes that infinitely easier. So it's a great time to be alive in the demo space. Let's now get into the meat of the presentation. And I want to do three things. I want to, just in case you're unaware, in case this is entirely new, I'm going to talk about what an interactive demo is, what it does, how it works briefly. We're going to talk about how interactive demos can be used to optimize the buying process and used across the buying process. And then I'm going to give you an idea of how do you figure out which one? Because, welcome to my world. There are more than 30 vendors that are in this space. So how do you make smart decisions about which products, which vendors, which are right for you, given the kind of things that you want to do with them? So let's jump in. Let's talk about what an interactive demo is. Now, pardon my cartoonish graphics, but I'm going to give you a representative picture of an interactive demo. Now, imagine that this is your application. So you have whatever it is, an analytical application. This is what it looks like when somebody looks at it on their computer. An interactive demo is a facsimile of your application. That's kind of the easiest way to describe it. Now, there's a bunch of ways to create it that we'll talk about in a minute, but what you end up doing is creating this look-alike and, to an extent, work-alike facsimile of your actual product, and then you make that available to your prospects. Now, you can make that available in a bunch of different ways. The example that I'm talking through here is on a website. So you can embed it on a page. You can embed a bunch of them on a bunch of pages. You can send it out as part of a campaign through email, as we talked about. You can have an SDR give it to a prospective buyer. But you have this facsimile, and then there's a bunch of things that the prospect or the buyer can do in order to understand the value that you offer. So first thing is, and I'll walk you through some of these things quickly, you can show where and let the person move through it like they want. So interactive demo, capital interactive. Interactive demos are successful in large part because they give the control to the buyer. They can step through it what they want, they can go back, they can go forward, but they walk through it at their own pace and they look at what they want. So you can see your progress, you can see steps, you can highlight things that you want those people to see. And you can do that a bunch of ways. There's guidance that you can write that now you can have spoken through the wonders of AI. And you can have hotspots that point out, look, here at this spot on the page, this is what I want you to look at, and here's why it's cool, as you discuss it in the guidance. You can put calls to action in your demos. So you can, as they're walking through, you can say to them, do you want to see more? Or would you actually like to talk to somebody at this point because you get it? Or let's say you're a PLG company and they're going through this interactive demo. You can say, hey, would you like to start a free trial at this point? You can insert forms. There's a whole bunch of things that you can do to make it that much more interactive. There's a certain length that works well. It tends to be 10 to 15 steps. Talk a little bit more about that later on. But again, the buyer can see where they are and what is happening. I just need to get rid of some stuff here so I can see what's going on. And then they're customizable. So let's say you want to make this demo available as a leave behind or as part of a campaign, as I've been talking about. Well, I can substitute company names, I can change data. There's a whole bunch of things that I can do to an extent, depending upon which technology I choose to create it, but you can customize them and personalize them to your audience. In fact, increasingly, you are able to take advantage of synthetic data. Now, this is going to be particularly important when we talk about live demos, but you can change the data and make it change in accordance with the context of your prospect, of your buyer. That's huge, especially when you think from a pre-sales or an SE standpoint. Good Lord, we have to give N demos a day and they got to be for different prospects in different vertical markets, and we'd like it in their context. Well, this technology makes that much, much easier. So that's the background. I'm going to show you some quick examples. And again, remember that these are taken from websites and their web pages. So, these are not necessarily what live demos look at, but they could be. But these are examples taken from the real world. This happens to be from Zendesk. And you can see in the background, you have the facsimile of the application. You have some guidance. And what Zendesk is walking you through a story of why what they're offering is awesome and amazing and so on. And never forget that this is about storytelling. You can use these in an educational sort of a way, but if you're putting them on a website, if you're using them as part of demand generation, then they're telling a story for you. Never forget that. There are some companies that do these that make it very perfunctory and very instructional, and that's not always the right way to do it. Here's another example of a demo that's embedded in a page. You can see it's Atlassian is the company. This demo happens to be from Arcade. The last one, sorry, Zendesk, was a Reprise demo. This one is Arcade, but you can see the hotspot guidance, etc. This is another one from another company, Novatic. There's not a huge amount of difference at surface level that you can see here. This is where it begins to get interesting. Here's another example. This happens to be a set of consensus demos, also for Atlassian. Atlassian has more than one vendor that they use. And this begins to show you the notion of demo center. And I'll close this part out by showing you the last example, which is the company Pendo, also a Reprise customer, that has one of the neater demo centers. And what I'll point out here that's really neat about it, other than the fact that it exists, is it says a couple of things. One is it's really, and talk more about it in a second, it's easy to create these. And because of that, you can create demos that reflect a lot of different use cases. They can reflect different roles. You can reflect the different types of users or roles, like I said, that might be using the product. And then you can make them available. And whether you do that on the website or other methods. But what's really cool about this is when you have a demo center like this or a set of demos, again, they're all collecting data. So as people walk through, as people look at each different use case or each different feature, or however it's rendered here, you're collecting data on what's of interest to them, and allows your sellers to have much better conversations. That's a huge thing. Okay, so that was a quick picture, literally, of what interactive demos look like. Now, how do we use them to optimize the buying process? And really, there's two sides of this coin. I'm talking about it from the perspective of the prospect and how to make their lives better and give them what they want, which, by the way, is we don't really want to talk to salespeople early in the process. We want to do our own work. We want to do our research. We want to see the value that you offer and figure out, does this do what I think I want it to do? But this is also optimizing your work and your processes. So I tend to talk about things from the buying process perspective, but there is sales process that's also being aided and optimized. And this is a comment that I get all the time, because not everybody understands how the technology works or why it's so amazing and all of that. And as I start talking about the wonder of interactive demos, and they're like, whoa, hold on. Hey, there's one of me, there's two of me. I don't have time. We don't have budget. How awful is this? Good Lord, help us out. So I'm here to tell you that there's no question that this technology makes a whole lot of lives a lot better and easier, and removes burdens in a bunch of different situations across the buying process and within your selling process. So let's look at how these things work. And this is a conversation that could take hours if we wanted it to. We only have 26 minutes left, so I'm going to compact a lot of information into a few slides here. So forgive me for racing a little bit through, but let's talk about the ways to the ways to create demos. Now, the reason that I think it's important to understand this is that as you look in the market, as I said, there's over 30 vendors in the market, and across the 30 vendors, there are multiple ways to create a quote unquote demo. And all of them have some benefit, but not all of them work best in all buying situations. And so my mission here, and this has been my mission for the last year and moving forward, is to try to help folks understand when and how to apply each of the methods to the right part of the buying process, and then ultimately figure out, okay, if I do that, which products make the most sense for me. So let's walk through this. So there are, I'm to an extent abbreviating a little bit the different methods of creating demos, but you have interactive video. So a lot of companies create Loom videos or Vidyard videos, or just video that's on YouTube or this or that, that's a head and a screen and kind of walking through it. And that's what most people have done for quite a long time. And video, as we know, has been an effective medium to drive engagement on websites. Video demos have been used successfully in sales situations as well. But that's one way to do it. And we'll talk about the efficacy of it in a moment. But so interactive video basically is I have a video, but what I'm allowing the visitor or the prospect to do is to walk through at their own pace, pick their own path, pick their own adventure, as some folks call it, through that video. And again, they can be used by sellers in a live situation, or they could be used self-service. I think that the better use case is self-service, but okay, so we have interactive video. We have screen capture, which is I walk through my product and I press a button, metaphorically or actually, but I capture a screen, and then I have a set of screens in a storyboard that I link together or flow together, and then to that I add the guidance and the hotspots and panning and zooming and basically ways to call attention to what I want people to see on those screens. In some cases, those captures are editable, and I've kind of combined two methods here. So there's screen capture, but there's also HTML capture and or ability to edit the HTML that you capture. So you can make minor customizations. So I can change names, I can move pictures in and out. Some cases, I can do a little bit more than that. But from there, you graduate to what many folks call cloning. And even here, there are flavors. But basically what's happening in this third tier is you're capturing the front end of the application. And as a result, what you get is a higher fidelity experience, something that looks and feels more like the real application. And when you take that and then start doing a little bit more, like intercepting backend API calls, then you have a clone of the application. And with that, you can do all sorts of fun things like create global variables. You can plug in synthetic data, all that sort of thing. But in that example, typically when companies use it, they capture a portion of their entire application, not the whole thing. If we move to the next level and have a sandbox kind of approach, what you then have is something that doesn't necessarily have guardrails. You have the ability to walk through whatever feature function you want in the application. And again, there are different ways to do this, all the way through creating what is an effective virtual machine or a sandbox instance of a real application that has full functionality and so on. But as we move here, this is again where the data and the synthetic data notion becomes that much more important. And then there's one more level, which is an overlay over a production application. So I can overlay, and whether that's data, customization, so on, but over the live application. And obviously that gives you free reign to do whatever you want in the application, with the added benefit of a customized set of data and approach for each customer. And then the last thing I'll add before I move on, sorry to belabor it, is that there are also demo applications that help show off APIs. So, if you're going to market with a product that is based on APIs that your customers consume and integrate with, it's kind of hard to show because there may not be a front end. So there are products that basically easily create a front end and then show off both what happens in that application and what the API calls are doing. Pretty neat stuff. So bunch of ways to make demos. The one thing that I will say here before I go on to a little bit more depth on how do they fit in the buying process is, pretty much all of these are easier than the way we've been doing it all along. So as I've been saying, the interactive demo technology, almost, no matter which one of these you pick, is going to be quicker, easier, less risky than going with a live application. And we've all been in the same place. I can tell you the number of instances where I'm on a vendor briefing, and I've had this happen to me when I was on the other side of the table in past lives. But part of a vendor briefing, they go to do the demo, and the person's in a hotel and the internet connection is bad, or they're using an alpha version of the product or a beta version of the product, and it doesn't work and it breaks. So, why risk it in most situations? So, this technology helps insulate you against risk. It makes it much easier to generate a demo and not only give it or make it available self-serve, but let somebody walk away with it in a lot of cases. So, buying teams are made up of, what's our number, 8 to 10 different people. Bigger as deals get bigger, and bigger, as complexity increases. So it's great if you can create a demo that can be shared among all those folks in the buying team. So lots of different benefits here. Point is, this makes life a lot easier for you, and it gives your prospects something that they can understand in their context and even can walk away with if they want. Now let's talk about in the buying process. So you hopefully everybody knows the acronyms up at the top. This is not soy-based food. This is top of funnel, middle funnel, bottom funnel. And point here is that this technology is usable across all of that. And what I want to do is give you a hint to when are kind of the right times in your funnel, in your loop, if you want to think of it that way, to use this technology. So first, and I'm generalizing, there are exceptions to this, but generally speaking, when you're at the top of this heap, top of the pile, the products generally are lower priced. They're easy. The demos are easier to create. There's a lot of speed. It's, I can create one, even a dummy like me can create one in 20 minutes. But it's lower fidelity. You don't end up with something that looks and feels a lot like the product. And as you go down, things are higher, right? The complexity goes up a bit. It becomes a little bit harder to create the demos, but it's because you can do more. If you're going to clone an application and put data into it, there's some thought that has to go into what it is you want to ultimately show. If you want to make it as realistic as possible, but the fidelity is going to be the highest. It's going to look and feel most like the real application, particularly if you're doing the overlay at the bottom there. If I take it another step, when are the most appropriate situations to use each of the different methods here? This is a thing, I'm spending a lot of time on this because, and forgive me, Reprise and other vendors that are in this space, but the vendors haven't done a great job in making it clear, even when they provide a lot of technology, exactly when's the best time to use it. And I'll talk more about that a little bit later, but I spend time here to try to help people understand when it makes sense to use each technology, and then it helps you make smarter decisions about who to consider. So the lower fidelity stuff tends to be more applicable to self-service. Now, it doesn't mean that the higher fidelity stuff can't, but there's no data yet that tells us that, for example, a screen capture demo drives more engagement than an HTML, CSS captured demo. I can make anecdotal statements about, listen, if I have a technical audience or a technical buyer, I think they want something that's more realistic. So I'd rather share something with them that looks more like the real thing versus I may be working with a less technical buyer or a less technical product where it's enough for me to show the screens and call attention to the elements that are on them in a self-service kind of thing. But I think the basic way to think about this is that the more you're talking about giving live demos, the more you're going down towards the bottom of this stack. Because in the live demo situation, I think you want as much fidelity as you can get. And then I think this puts you in a position to say, well, given my demo audience, I need to show them this set of things, not the entire application, but we're going to show them this particular capability because hopefully we know through discovery, or we know through conversations, or maybe we had data from when they looked at on the website about what they're interested in. But the more you want to be live, the higher fidelity you want. That's how that works. The one thing to remember here is if you start with products that are toward the bottom of this of the list, you can typically, and not all the time, but there are products that where you can take those demos and then reuse them and use them as leave behinds, or send them out in the campaign, or embed them on your website with some editing, more than likely. But when you start from the top, it's less likely that you're going to be able to use those in the live demo situations. Again, everyone's different, and the technologies at the top have been used to give live demos, but I think again we want to move toward higher fidelity views of the application as you go live. So the reason I'm going through this is I think it necessitates you thinking about the use cases that you're going to have, the types of demos that you want to give and when you need to give them across that buying process, and then which technology suits the creation and delivery of those demos best. This past week or so, I decided to do a poll, very timely. And by the way, I'm on LinkedIn more than any human should be. I encourage everyone to go follow, read, and see what things I'm commenting on or that sort of stuff. But did a poll in the last week because I'm always interested in what use cases are motivating people the most. The data in this poll is as of too late last night. I have to also say this is the most successful poll in terms of the N size that I've ever done on LinkedIn. 80 votes is pretty good, in terms of the polling that I've done and we've done before on LinkedIn. And so interestingly, it turns out that the sales-driven live demos, or the interest in sales-driven live demos, not quite 2-to-1, but substantially higher than the self-service demos in terms of the priority use case that people are interested in solving. I don't know why that is. I could take guesses, but I think it's an interesting comment. Maybe I have more salespeople reading what I do than marketers reading what I do. From my perspective, anecdotally, it's about even, in terms of the conversations I have with clients. I also skew a little bit more to the marketing side. So I have more, I tend to have more conversations about the embedded demo and the demand gen side of it and all of that. But I speak to both, and I just thought it was interesting to share, where people see these use cases. The other thing that this does is, and you can see there are other use cases that I couldn't include because LinkedIn is a little bit limited in how they let you do polls, but there's an interest across a panoply of use cases here. So thought you'd all find that interesting. Why are we having this conversation? Why is this such an interesting technology? Tech is fun, but we want it to deliver benefits. So I don't know that there's any technology that I've ever worked with or followed or used that has had such immediate and apparent efficacy. And not only when let's say 2 years ago, as I was introducing this technology to a lot of people for the first time, immediately they got it. They got, wow, I can use that here, 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 here. And then subsequently, when they've implemented it, they're immediately seeing benefits. So what are the benefits that they're seeing? I'm going to separate this into 2 of those use cases that we saw before because they're the preeminent ones. And so from the marketing side, I have spoken with, read about, witnessed numerous examples of increased engagement rates, higher MQL numbers, things like incredible percentage lifts in free trial signups. I mean, we talked about PLG really briefly before. Part of the problem in product led is that many companies don't introduce their free trials well, and they're kind of mysterious, and people drop out of them before they even use them in a lot of cases. Using an interactive demo as an intro to that helps get rid of some of that mystery, and it shows somebody, hey, here's what you're going to see, here's what you're going to get, here's why you should invest the time and effort in our trial, in the freemium offer, that kind of thing. And then the amazing stat is it's lowering customer acquisition costs fairly substantially. On the sales side, this technology, and there are multiple ways to use it. Actually, I think some of the marketing use cases are actually sales use cases in disguise because they're replacing demos that would have been given by SDRs or by pre-sales people. But when you do those embeds, they also allow your buyers to self-qualify by virtue of them looking at it or not looking at it, or in terms of which, if you have more than one, which demos they look at. But when used on the sales side, in one case, over 1/3 of the leads became qualified opportunities. That's pretty good. They closed twice as often. And importantly, the sales cycle times decrease substantially. A 1/3 increase in velocity or decrease in sales cycle time. That's really cool stuff. And then from the SE and the pre-sales perspective, there's potential for huge cost savings and time. Well, time savings is kind of cost savings, and we don't have infinite resources. So savings on demo prep time, spinning up live demo tenants that you don't have to spin up and therefore save money. You know, the resources, the human resources, the compute resources, all that sort of stuff gets saved. So tremendous amount of benefit. And don't believe me. There are others. And again, if you search around LinkedIn as much as I do, you see this stuff come up. But there's a company called Hockey Stack that had done their own analysis. This was earlier this year, if I remember correctly. They came up with almost exactly the same numbers that I did and I've seen, which is better conversion rates and faster deal closes. So this stuff works. I'm really confident in it. The stuff works, but all right, it's not infallible. The good news is I'm not typically encountering vendors with technologies that with applications that don't work. The technology itself is good, it's dependable, but we are human. And also this is a new medium. Not everybody knows how to use it. So what could go wrong? When you're doing the website embeds, they could be mysterious. They could not be guided well, or there are some people that are using vocal narration now, which AI is wonderful. It's not perfect. So there may be an air of mystery, or it may sound funny, that kind of thing. So it might be bad. It might be way too long. Or earlier I said that the right size here is a 10 to 15 step kind of thing. Now you can have a 100-step demo, but if you chunk it into pieces, it is much, 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 much more effective. So keep them short and don't gate them. If they're on your website, and this is an argument, again, we can spend an hour talking through, but don't gate them. There are much more creative ways to get the information that you want about the people that are looking at them. Obviously, this doesn't apply to the live demos because you're not gating them at all, obviously. But when you have them on the website, find the better ways. Put in forms later in the demo. Use CTAs. Several of the vendors are including enrichment technology to kind of figure out and de-anonymize who visited and who saw them. So I think we can be better at that. So in the last couple of minutes, I want to touch on the last critical issue here. And it is, help me figure out, how do I make the right decision among all the vendors and among all the things I could be doing with it. So just as a reminder, the technology is incredibly versatile. I often talk about it as a hammer where everything is a nail. So we've thought about sales use cases. So live demos with channel partners, demoing complex products that have multiple applications and APIs. You can do all that. The marketing side, so top of the funnel sort of stuff, part of campaigns and ABM and so on. But product managers can use this to introduce new features. They can create demos out of Figma designs to make them come alive and show off things that don't exist yet, which is pretty cool. Customer success is another area, and whether that's support, whether it's training, these can be used as well. So they're versatile, and I guarantee that no matter where you start, somebody's going to see that this stuff is cool and it works, and they're going to want it elsewhere in your organization. So you have to be smart about the technology that you purchase, because it's ultimately going to have to serve a variety of use cases. I guarantee it. So given that there are so many providers in the market, how do you make that intelligent decision? Now, sorry, if what you expected was to walk through, or me to walk through all of the 30 vendors, not going to do that. There's not an infinite amount of time here. I'll tell you some places where you can find that information in a moment, but I want to give some high-level criteria of how to think through these decisions. So at a high level, there's the stuff that you would normally consider. So, is the vendor stable? Are they in for the long haul? Is their technology moated, if that's a verb, or has enough moats to sustain, competitive onslaught? Have they done implementations like yours? If you're trying to do, if your primary use case is live demos with synthetic data, but you're looking at a product that only does screen capture, or, it's not going to fit. That's obvious. But so, has your vendor done implementations like the one that you want to do, and have they been successful? Are they going to help you create the demo? Because again, this is a new medium, and not everybody inherently knows how to do the right thing with it. And are they enterprise ready? So whether it's SOC 2 compliance, or experience in large accounts, or it's customer success, or professional services, those are things to think through. And then it's a look at which creation methods that demo vendor uses. So as I said, lots of vendors, lots of methods. But I'll give you another hint in a moment. But you've got to attach the methods that are going to deliver and allow you to create the demos that you need to create for your use cases with the vendors that do them. Beyond the demo creation methods, what do you want to consider? Until recently, this only had 5 tiles. So speed tends to be almost always the number one thing that the clients ask me about. And I think it's a little bit, it tends to be a bigger deal on the marketing side. I don't want to spend my life creating a demo that's going to go on my website. I want to do it quickly. I want to change it easily, that kind of thing. So speed and customization and change ease is important. The analytics that come along with these, critically important. The integrations they provide, particularly on the marketing side, to marketing automation, CRM, but true on the sales side also. Either to make the demo part of your opportunity process, or capture the data from what you've done and then use that as part of the process. Incredibly important. Can the vendor deal with multiple use cases by virtue of their demo creation technology? Are they also offering sales performance capability and integrations? So that could be everything from team functions to hooking up to sales engagement, to hooking up to CRM, and again, making it a part of the opportunity. And then the new one is the last one. I think that the ability to create and include synthetic data is going to be incredibly important. AI is helping us with that, but part of the ability to deliver demos in context easily and quickly is going to depend upon whether you can provide data to offer that context to those prospects. So without going through 30 names, what I will say is, when you look at the creation methods, that parabola is pretty accurate. I mean, even though it's an icon I pulled from PowerPoint, that distribution is pretty much correct. There are more and more vendors that sound alike and provide kind of almost sort of the same capability in the middle there. But it's not all the same. But what I will say, and one, I think, kind of easy way to separate folks, is there are only 5 vendors that span more than 3 of the creation methods. And the reason that that's important is that, my advice is, like any other technology, people buy things tactically. You purchase a product or a service to solve a pain point, but you don't want to have to make 2 or 3 purchases over time. So the notion is, buy and implement tactically, solve the problem, but select your vendor strategically. Know that this is going to have to scale. Know that it's going to have to support multiple use cases, and make decisions accordingly. What's going to happen in the now, near future, even as we speak, things to look at. Gen AI is like, without every other technology area is hitting this hard. So whether that is translation, multiple languages, synthetic data, even, I don't know if everyone saw the announcement with Claude yesterday, where Claude can now run applications. You're going to have products that generate demos. And it's closer than you think. So Gen AI is a big thing here. The notion of demo centers, collections of demos that you can easily make available to your prospects through your website, or through something that looks and feels like a digital sales room, is on the rise. Sales function or sales related functionality, so tracking the performance of sellers using demos, or attributing success due to demos being used, given all of that. That sort of integration is also on the rise. Platforms that do more than 1 or 2 or even 3 different demo creation modes, happening more. There's not, like I said, there's only about 5 right now, but I think we'll see more. And then pricing is evolving pretty quickly in your favor. From what I can tell, there's let's just say there's pricing pressure on the way down. What I'll close with is, hopefully, this is useful in setting the stage of what you're going to hear about the rest of this day, this webinar. But there's a lot more information, that we have at Gartner that I've published, my colleagues have published. So just to give you a little bit of a flavor, how do we use demos across the buyer journey, across the buying process, the market guide that Courtney nicely talked about earlier. And if you're going to put them on your website, how do you make them work well? There's stuff that I've posted on LinkedIn in terms of live demos and how to think about them. So a lot of stuff that we have, we're happy to help. Please get in touch. And with that, I think I am done. So I thank everybody very much for listening.